Welcome to Agency Bytes, a podcast for agency owners, hosted by agency veteran and coach Steve Guberman. Agency Bytes is a podcast focused on delivering actionable agency information from agency experts in about 25 minutes. Why 25 minutes? Because who has the attention span for much more these days? And you can squeeze in a listen between meetings with time for a bathroom break or coffee refill before your next meeting.
Welcome to Agency Bytes, a podcast dedicated to helping creative entrepreneurs thrive. I'm Steve Guberman from Agency Outsight, where I coach agency owners to build the business of their dreams. I'm pumped. My guest today is joining me all the way from Australia. James Barnard is a logo designer and design educator specializing in creating logos and visual identities with meaning. With over 15 years of experience in the graphic design industry, he began his career in the UK's publishing sector before transitioning into branding and education. Passionate about sharing his expertise, James is dedicated to mentoring and inspiring the next generation of designers through his social platforms, where he provides valuable insights, tutorials, and industry knowledge. Also, crazy designer, speaker at places like Adobe and Creative South, and king of the thumbs up, winky face that embarrasses his kids, I'm sure. So, James, thanks for joining me all the way from Australia. Appreciate you being here.
Welcome. And thank you. We were just talking before this podcast. Thank you for staying up late to accommodate my time zone. There are no hours in the day that cross over with the East Coast and where I live. It's just impossible. So someone's got to give whenever we need to get on the phone. So I appreciate
it's a small sacrifice to make for making this beautiful art that we get to make together. So small sacrifice. Yeah.
So literally 9:30 in the morning here. I've already had my coffee. I won't lie, I'm absolutely exhausted still. I've got 2 young children who kick my ass on a daily basis. I'm also doing a challenge with my gym where I'm trying to lose a little bit of the dad bod. So I'm on less calories, no booze, working out every day. I'm absolutely exhausted at work. So if I yawn, it's not you, it's me. I promise.
Yeah, it might also be a little bit of me, but yeah, that sounds like a pretty intense shift of pace for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good for you. Good luck with the challenge. I'm sure you'll crush it. No doubt about that. Yeah. And so I started following you, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago, and it was really cool to see how your audience grew so rapidly from your YouTube content, Instagram content. I don't think I follow you on TikTok because I don't use TikTok that much because I'm not a teenager, but that's also like a misnomer. And so, so backstory agency. So what was that evolution like for you?
Oh, I got my start. I was really late into graphic design in the grand scheme of things. I think I was like 25 when I changed career and decided to become a graphic designer. I say changed career. I moved to London, wanted to be a record producer straight out of university, and realized that it was just long hours underground on my own all day, and also just couldn't find work when I moved to London. So I took on just like this researcher role in an office. Gradually, as that role progressed, I got more and more managerial. I started doing things like making company intranets in WordPress, got a copy of Photoshop installed on my company computer, and just fell in love immediately. And I did a module of HTML when I was at university, so I knew enough about how to build websites using tables, that kind of thing. So I guess my first sort of graphic design position was like digital designer or web designer. So I started in the publishing industry at the age of 25. I worked for Runner's World magazine as their like in-house graphic designer, working on between their sort of creative teams and their editorial teams. Worked my way through the publishing industry, ended up at a national newspaper called the Daily Telegraph in the UK. And it was just really, really fast paced. My last full-time role was for the Times and the Sun newspaper in the UK. And I got to a point in my career where I was now managing people rather than doing the design work. And I've got to say, I really didn't enjoy it as much. I loved imparting the knowledge and I loved the teaching, but actually putting out the fires, dealing with like HR issues, doing less and less of the design and more of the managerial side of things, which is not for me ultimately. So I left after about 6 weeks, if I'm honest. I went freelance to pay the bills while I tried to find the new full-time role. And while I was freelancing in agencies across London, realized this freelance life's all right, isn't it? I can pick my own jobs. I can work with my own clients.
Yep.
If I work with the clients directly, I can take a nap in the middle of the day. It's just no looking back after that. So yeah, that's been the story ever since. And about 5 years ago now, we moved to Australia. My wife's Australian. So we left London in the middle of the pandemic, moved here, started freelancing, trying to find sort of logo design work, and realized it paid half as much as where I was on in the UK. So yeah, it was a bit of a shock to the system. But then things just started happening for me on social media, and it was actually TikTok where I got my big break. It was my first viral video was on TikTok. So yeah, don't discount the TikTok audience. It's not just for teenagers. They have there's a huge amount of people who run businesses basically making TikTok content, and it's a hugely powerful platform. But yeah, that's where I got my big start.
So how much of your business as a full-time freelancer is in Australia versus like other parts of the world?
Not so much of it, if I'm honest. The main amount of my logo design clients are probably in the States or the UK. Okay. The reason I still have a lot of work from the UK is that my website was really, really well set up with SEO. So the keywords freelance logo designer London, I really targeted that a few years back, and it's just kind of stuck. I think I was like number 1 on Google for that search term. And that was not to be sniffed at. It's bringing in a decent amount of leads just from SEO. So I do get a fair few jobs from London, mostly from the States. But more and more are coming from Australia now. They are starting to see the value in a good visual identity. So the last couple of clients that I've worked with have actually been Australian businesses, which has been great. But also like my financial split of the pie has kind of been way more diversified since this social media thing happened, and I'm getting a lot more income from different streams now rather than just my logo design business.
We're going to talk about that in a minute because I think that's very interesting. But I mean, there's only 2 brand designers in Australia anyway, so you and the other guy can just split down the middle and
who are you talking
figure that out. You know that guy, Jacob.
Yeah.
So was there a strategy when you launched into like the TikTok and creating the videos, or was it just like, I'm just going to wing it and put it out and see what happens? Like, was the rise to TikTok famedom planned, or like how did you make that work out?
Not at all.
Okay.
So obviously I followed in the footsteps of your former guest, James Martin, and he was someone I really looked up to on Instagram specifically as someone who's really putting themselves out there on social media and sharing their work. And like back then it was all really, static content, image carousels, that kind of thing, showing your work. He was really great at that, and I really looked up to him. So I did the same thing. I basically shared my work on Instagram just as like static posts, but just didn't see any kind of traction at all. It just took forever to get anything. And I didn't get any leads from social media that way. And I started maybe 6 years ago, started recording myself designing logos, like screen time-lapse content where I'd get a really, really simple design, take it from a sketch to a vector all on camera and just cut it down in a time-lapse format. And I was posting that to places like Reddit, the logo design and graphic design channels on Reddit, and they were doing really well there. So I started taking that video content and posting it to TikTok and Instagram. And it did okay. It wasn't amazing, just a few views trickling in, until I decided to get on camera. And it was I got my logos published in a book called The Logo Lounge, which is like this great sort of design resource book. It's packed full of logo design inspiration. And there's a submission process, and I went through the process, and 3 of my designs got accepted, and I was super excited about it, really pumped. I went on TikTok basically to brag about getting in this book. And the way I did it was I stitched a video, which the intro of the video was, give me an example of a niche flex, which means nothing to the majority, but is absolutely amazing in your industry. And I talked about getting in this book. And that video hit 3 million views on TikTok. Wow. But overnight, my business went from, 1, 2, 3 leads a week to something like 60 or 70 leads in a single day, all from that one video.
Wow.
And then from that point out, my logo design business has been booked out 3 months solid ever since. So I realized, this social media video content production game is where I should be putting my focus. And ever since then, I've just kind of dedicated a certain amount of my time per week to making content and bringing clients that way.
But the difference between videos falling flat and this one going viral was you being in it. And sure, you've got the winning smile and all that, but there's a connection with humans. There it is. There's a connection with humans that was the difference maker, you think, right?
Yeah. People like to deal with people, don't they? Rather
Yeah.
than these faceless companies. And,
Yeah.
you know, for the longest time, I had my logo as my profile picture. But yeah, you're right. People, I think the reason that video was so successful, firstly, it was complete luck. There was a few reasons why. I've picked it apart since, and there's a few reasons why I think that one particularly went viral. It was number one, I was really excited and like being a bit geeky and nerdy, and people kind of just gelled with that. Number two, it was people mistook my stupid British accent and they thought I was saying Lego, not logo. So people hung around in the video waiting to see these amazing Lego designs, and then were immediately disappointed at the end. But yeah, it was just a bit of a cheeky old camera thing. It was quite genuine. My 1-year-old son was in the background at the time because I was looking after him. He kind of wailing away in the background. So I had the baby factor in there as well. So I think that might have something to do with it. But yeah, I realized really quickly that the getting on camera and actually, you know, editing the videos a bit and trying to make them a bit more punchy was the way to go. And then people started asking me questions in the comments of that viral video, like, show us the logos. How did you become a logo designer? How do you find clients? And I just started answering those questions in videos, and the followers just kept on coming until maybe 6 months later on Instagram, I had another viral moment where one of my videos about Adobe Illustrator and explaining how to use the pencil tool, like the most niche thing you could possibly imagine, that hit 15 million views, and I got 100,000 followers in 2 weeks. So obviously I've been making content for a little while then, and there was a lot of content behind that viral video. So when people found my account, there was, you know, a bank of videos for them to go through and kind of binge. So that kind of led to a lot of followers. And ever since then, Instagram has always been in front of TikTok in terms of the number of followers. But yeah, I'm up to like 500,000 followers on Instagram now. It's insane.
Beautiful. So in that rise, I guess 2-part question. One is, of that 60 plus increase about logo design a week, what percentage of those are qualified leads versus people like, can you do a logo for me for $50 versus what you really charge? And then on the tail end of that, now you're booked out for 3 months. How has your pricing gone up? You don't need to divulge what you charge for a logo. I know you've got some videos on pricing, but as your demand increases, how has your pricing gone up?
Well, when I got that first viral video, I was actually it came at a really great time because my business was honestly in a bit of a slump. I made a big mistake of putting my prices on my website. And unfortunately for a lot of people, that price was too high, and it didn't allow for me to explain why I was charging that amount. I mean, my work was good and it kind of spoke for itself, but it meant that my leads really dried up. And I went through a point where once those prices were on, I got no leads in 2 months at all, and my cash flow just completely dried up. So when that viral moment happened and I started getting leads through, I probably took on a few jobs cheaper than I normally would have, just out of desperation because things were so bleak. But honestly, some of these clients that found me through TikTok really did have money to spend. They weren't just like offering me, well, there were a lot of people that were offering, £100, $50, that kind of thing. And that was fine. But there was some serious players out there who were willing to spend a decent amount of money. And since then, it's been about sort of supply and demand. I'm trying to find that sweet spot between being not booked out or booked out solidly, which means obviously my prices are a little bit too cheap, rather than not being booked out at all. They're a bit expensive, and trying to find somewhere in the middle. And it's a constantly adjusting thing. It never stops. I'm always kind of tweaking it to try and find that sweet spot. So yeah, it's been a bit of a bumpy road trying to find that sort of pricing sweet spot. But I went on a podcast about a month ago with a guy called Josh Hall, who gave me some pointers about how to qualify those leads a little bit better. And now on my website, there is a bit of a funnel which says my prices start around about here. And here's a video explaining why they do. And I made a dedicated piece of content for my website, and you can go check it out at my site now if you want, at barnard.co. If you go through the funnel, you'll see it, and it just explains about why this, why I charge what I do, and it's really helped. It does qualify the leads. Obviously, the number of leads has gone down, but actually, the number of qualified leads has totally gone up, and it just saves me so much time. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's what we want. We want, fewer leads, so long as their quantity of those are more qualified. So you're not pitching wood all day and wasting your time, on unqualified calls. And so that's interesting. So do you ever anticipate kind of transitioning from solo freelance designer to running an agency or building this beyond just you?
Well, it's not just me at the moment. I do have an assistant who helps me out. So I am, I guess you would call me like a small studio, maybe. Mm-hmm. My worry is going back to where I was before I went into a freelance role, where I'm doing less and less of the design work, which I love, in return for more managerial and the client side stuff. And look, I like dealing with clients personally. I like the one-on-one with them. I like being able to upsell them personally when I get on the phone with them, because obviously logo design and visual identity, it's the start point of the sale is the logo, and that's how people find me, and I'm very searchable that way. But obviously there's more that I can sell up in terms of number of deliverables, website. Do you need to animate the logo? Do you need more and more of the collateral that comes from visual identity? And that's where I kind of bump up those leads and actually squeeze a bit more out of each customer. So, I do have an assistant. She helps me out with the things that I don't like doing, if I'm completely honest.
Perfect.
We're just like exporting logos, doing brand guidelines, documents. She helps me with my presentations as well, which is really great. So when I got the logo design done, she'll help me with mock-ups. And as we work together, she's slowly more and more coming on board with the actual concept side of things. So helping me actually come up with ideas, and I'm becoming a bit of a mentor for her in that way, which is fantastic. But yeah, I do worry that if I were to go to something like an agency and actually start something and get an office, that I will slowly trickle into that realm of manager rather than designer. And I'm terrified about that. I like being on the ground. I like doing the work. I've realized that that's where I enjoy my job. I actually love doing the work. And I'm 40 years old now. I'm a spring chicken. I've done this a lot. I know the parts of the industry which I like doing, and I'm very, very reluctant to kind of let go of that. So I like being hands-on. So that's probably one of the reasons why I wouldn't, scale this too much.
And I think that's a common concern or challenge of a creative professional. That's like, I want to build this. I'd like to have a more sustainable business so I can go on vacation and the business keeps running and that kind of thing. Holiday to you guys. And there are certainly ways to do that. But so many creative professionals are like, wow, now I've got to do bookkeeping and marketing and all these other things I don't want to do. So, there's ways around that. I work with plenty of agency owners who that's their focus. I want to do the design. I want to do the strategy. I want to, work from the creative brief, et cetera. And I don't want to do these other things. And so there's ways to do it, and there's pitfalls to both, obviously. But just curious if you had kind of a vision of growth, or you liked the size of what you've built so far.
I like my life right now.
Yeah.
Honestly, I live in an absolute paradise. I have 2 young children who I get to spend loads of time with. I don't have a commute. I'm always home for dinner. I'm always there to put them down to bed at night. And if I want, I can take time off pretty much whenever I want to. I mean, obviously I've got to make money and I've got clients that I need to service, but I can build in buffers there. And I have a very long sort of creative process with my clients. It actually takes 2 weeks for me to go back to a client with their first option of their logo design to take a look at, which is a massive buffer. It allows for loads of creative freedom. It allows me to take breaks and sleep on my work so that I'm not rushing any jobs. And I have lots and lots of free time. Like I was saying before, I've diversified my financial income to the point where I'm not solely reliant on client work anymore. So I can take time off. I can run an errand in the middle of the day. I have a lot of freedom in my job, and I would find it very difficult to give up that freedom right now, if I'm honest.
Yeah. I don't blame you. I think that freedom is kind of, I think it's got to be a priority. If somebody wants it, then they can build a business around it. I am curious about, so you give a client 2 weeks lead time. Does that mean you're doing the work like on that 14th day, or do you actually spread it out like a responsible adult?
Yeah, I do spread it out. I have to. So I've talked about this in one of my Adobe Max speeches, and a talk that I called "Signed Off, No Amends," and I've gotten really good at getting my work signed off first go. It doesn't happen every time, obviously, but one of the ways I've found that I produce my best work is by taking loads and loads of breaks on my job, sleeping on my work. So if I get a logo design brief through and I start on day one, I'll take the full 14 days to make this design, and I won't really send it early unless I know I've really hit the nail on the head. So it's about me doing a design for maybe a couple of hours a day, stopping, taking a break, stepping away from my desk, coming back to it with fresh eyes, maybe the next day, and looking at it again. And honestly, the rubbish that I come up with as a graphic designer, when I come back to it the next day, having slept, I'm like, what did I design yesterday? This is terrible. Do that 14 times, and by the end of that 14th day, you've got a really rounded logo that's been kind of through this sort of sleep design process, and at least a much higher quality work. So yeah, I really like this buffer that I built in. A lot of designers work a lot faster, and I probably can work faster, but I like to chill out and take my time and not stress over it. So ideally, yeah, a couple of hours a day I'll be working on. It does ramp up, obviously, as we get closer and closer to that 2-week deadline and the presentation is due. Sometimes I'll work for 8-9 days and I've got nothing still, and that's when I start to panic a little bit. But luckily, I've got a great process, and one of my heroes, Alan Peters, gave me some great advice about how he does things, and I've totally stolen it, and it just works. He uses something called the brand noun process, where you get concepts pre-approved from your client before you even start design work. Because the hardest part of the whole process with the client is that bit before you actually put pencil to paper, getting those concepts and those nouns approved with your client, so that when it comes to designing, you're not working using concepts that they're not going to like. And that means there's no surprises when the first logo design comes through. You've answered their brief. We also create a success statement for the job, which is like a paragraph which says what we're going to do. And I have that in my Illustrator document while I'm working, so I can always look at it while I'm actually designing, meaning that as I'm working through, I'm not drifting off in directions that are just completely irrelevant to my clients. I'm always kind of grounding myself within that Illustrator document, within these brand nouns. And yeah, the sign off, you wouldn't believe how many clients over the last sort of 2 or 3 years have signed off with no amends at all. Just like, brilliant, nail on the head, you've done it. And that obviously means that I can turn clients over a bit quicker. I can bring in the next job, which is fantastic.
It's funny you mentioned the brand noun process that you got from Alan, because you did an unboxing video. I saw, I don't know, last week or something like that. And there was a sticky note on your desk with 4 words. And I was like, that's the most random thing. What the heck is that? And then like a couple of days later, you did a video about the work you're doing for your wife's business. And it was those 4 nouns. There you go. And so that explained it. And a shout out to Alan Peters, another brilliant designer. Man, we're just going through the names.
His book, Logos That Last, is the one.
Logos That Last. I got it signed in Texas. Yeah.
Nice. Excellent. I'm going to take mine to Creative South this year and get mine signed from him as well. Yeah, this whole social media thing has meant that I now have people like that in my life who I can call friends and bounce ideas off. And Alan and I have become, like, we haven't met yet in person, but we chat quite regularly. He sends me voice notes all the time. He's really funny. So, his process is fantastic. He's done all the hard work for me. I just have to list it and use it. And so when I'm working on a job, I have that sticky note that has 4 words on it, and I'm always looking at it, I'm always thinking. I'm always, when I come up with an idea, I've got a notepad right then, I'll just sketch something down. So yeah, it's such a great way to work. It's like getting your work pre-approved before you start. It's really clever. Yeah. And it means that you're doing the part of the job that the client hired you to do. They're hiring you for your expertise as a designer. So, you're basically just answering a pre-approved brief, which is, it's almost too easy.
Yeah, you talking about your process makes me want to get back into design in a sense, because I did love the process. I did love bringing clients into like early sketch concepts, as opposed to waiting until it's high fidelity and then having to rebuild, and never, always had creative briefs, but never did the noun project process that you talk about. But you make it sound like very appealing, but it's nothing that I want any fat.
There are different ways to do it, though. So Alan and I are very different when it comes to execution. So he's great at sketching. I suck at sketching. One of the things that I've prided myself on is going faster in the software. So I would do really horrible rough sketches, but I can go into Illustrator and lightning quick turn that into a vector to see if it's got legs or not. And that's how I like to work. I can't do these high fidelity sketches. If I were to send my sketches to a client, I would be embarrassed. It is terrible. So and Alan is very different. He does lots. He does something like 30, 50 sketches and then sends some of those over. I think he sends like 12 over or 9 over to a client to have a look at. And from one of them, they'll pick and then turn that into a nice, clean vector. I just can't work that way. My sketches aren't good enough. So I have to use little doodles and line connections to test the legs on something. I do sketch, but they're awful. But then I'm into the software as fast as possible. And it's one of the reasons why I think also the social media content has done so well is that I'm very good at explaining how to use packages like Adobe Illustrator faster so I can get logos out really, really quickly and test their legs in a vector format to see if they look good or not.
Yeah, and I love it. I am also fascinated by people's design process. Like, again, thinking about Jacob, and he's opened up about his process, and he does tons of vector work on his artboards and plays around with a lot of sketches, and same thing with James. I'm fascinated by artists' process and how they operate best and how they communicate best. And but you mentioned not at all related to process, financial diversification, and I think that's super, super important. At what point did you say, all right, I've got to get another avenue of income? I know you sell courses. What else is going on there?
That wasn't a sort of direct decision. That's something that just came about from this growth on social media. After I hit a certain sort of follower base, I got contacted by a few brands who reached out and wanted to do a couple of paid promotions with me. And one of those was Adobe. And obviously I'm already making content around packages like Illustrator, Photoshop, Premiere Pro. I was already doing this content, and they came to me and said, "Can we pay you to do a couple?" I was like, "Absolutely." It totally gels with my audience. I mean, there's some designers out there that just don't do paid promotions, and fair play to them. But when the content comes in and it's already within my niche and it doesn't feel too salesy, I'm absolutely going to do that. And sometimes people don't even notice that the content is paid, and that's fantastic. That means it's a perfect harmony within what I'm already doing. So there's other brands as well that I've worked with over the years, and that's just come from a little bit of success on social media. And then obviously because I'm kind of in the education space, I'm teaching people how to use platforms like Illustrator and Photoshop. I thought, why not make a course about this and see if I can diversify my income a little bit that way. And that's been hugely successful. I mean, people really seem to like the way I explain things. I get lots of messages saying that one of the most common things people say is, I got more out of this than I did at school. And that's really telling, isn't it, about how, the design education system is currently set up. People are learning more on platforms like Instagram and TikTok than they ever did in school. So I'm in sort of two minds about that statement, because obviously I think school is very, very important. I do think you should go to university and school, if only just to learn about the history of graphic design, which I never did. I came into it too late, and I figured all this stuff out later, and I kind of regret that. But at the same time, you can learn the specifics about a software package on somewhere like YouTube, on somewhere like Skillshare, or buying a course from me. So I've absolutely worked harder on doing that. The issue is it's only me working on it right now. I'm such a control freak that I do all of it myself. And when I made my first course, when I made my first course, which is called Turbocharge Your Logo Designs, How to Go Faster in Adobe Illustrator, it took me 6 weeks of writing, filming, editing. I did everything myself. I set up the course platform on Kajabi, made the website, did all the email flows, all the marketing, you name it. I was so burnt out by the end of the process that I kind of haven't done another one since. But there's more coming from there. But it's a fantastic way to kind of take the pressure off finding clients. Do you know what I mean? And allows me to when I do that, it allows me to spend longer on client jobs and do a better job, and target clients that can spend a bit more, so that maybe I can do less client work, just with higher value clients as the years progress.
Yeah, fewer higher value clients. That's the goal right there. Yeah, I love that you're putting out content, man. When I was in uni, there was not, Google had just come out. I remember we were in like a design class. It was like, have you tried this Google thing? So there was there was no YouTube yet. And so anything that we wanted to learn was from a book. It was, the Dreamweaver series or the HTML series or, HTML for Dummies or whatever, or you figured it out yourself, or you bootlegged the CD of Photoshop and you figured it out, on your Hewlett Packard tower. So, the upcoming generation is far luckier in that they can dig into your Kajabi course. They can, follow along on TikTok on how to use the pen tool or the Firefly tool or all these things you're highlighting. Man, listen, I'm so rusty that when I do need to jump into design, it's like, I got to Google how to do this thing in Illustrator first. And so it's a great asset that you're providing.
Sorry, I cut you off. There's a bit of a delay.
Yeah, I was just saying it's a great value. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not always about like knowing everything that the software can do. You just have to know what it can do and then look it up later on. And I think that's why my content has been so successful, is that I'm showing people tips and tricks that you didn't know you could do in the software.
Yep.
You don't necessarily have to learn step by step how to do it from my content, but it's just me showing you you can do it. Don't forget, this package can do this thing that you didn't know. Go back and Google it later on and figure out how to do it in full. So that's the difference between the social media content and the course. So the social media is like, here's a quick tip and trick. It's a very popular video. It sometimes goes viral because it is so short and succinct. You want to know more? I've got a course about this. So yeah, it's kind of it's like a funnel for my course content. It's fantastic.
I love it. I was taught, and I firmly believe that it's important to let the creativity grow before I jump into the tool, and before I get kind of blinded by the filters and the fancy tricks and things like that. Come up with the idea and let the idea get built in the tool, but don't rely on the tool to be what the idea is coming from. And so I guess there's mixed theories on that. Especially you're trying to get into Illustrator quicker, get high fidelity quicker, because your mind can see what you want to make. And so mixed feelings there. But all right, I want to throw a couple of random rapid fires at you. These are always fun, just to kind of wrap things up. So the first is, if your life had a theme song, what would it be?
Oh my goodness! Right now, what's that one? Spanish Flea, the one that goes. Because my life is carnage right now. I've got young kids who destroy me in the mornings. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old who's turning 4 in a couple of months. Me and my wife are like in the trenches right now. Doing the hard yards with the kids. So, breakfast in the morning with the kids is insane, trying to get them out the door. We do the school run. I run back here, do a bit of work, pick the kids up, all starts again. It is absolutely crazy. So it's a fleeting mess. So I think that will be,
love it. It's a good soundtrack. Hey, it keeps you young though. What are you going to do? What's a childhood hobby that you wish you never gave up?
Playing the drums. I was a drummer at school. And I got a electronic drum kit when I moved to London. And even with the electronic kit, I still got complaints from the neighbors from upstairs and downstairs. And I never got another one. I sold it when I left the UK and I never got another one. So yeah, drumming would be something I'd love to get back into.
There you go. Get into it. Start a band with your family. Yeah. And then finally, what's one thing you think designers or agencies waste too much time on?
Pitching. Have I read the book? I forget what it's called now. The Win Without Pitching.
Without Pitching.
Yeah.
Oh, just had Blair on. That's a great book.
Was you really? Fantastic. Yeah. Blair Ants. He's amazing. I got recommended that book by Christo actually. And it's so true. Like, why is our industry set up to do free work to maybe get a job down the line?
Yeah.
How backwards could that possibly be? And I've worked in agencies in London where they bring in freelancers like me to help win pitches. So I've done everything when it comes to actually pitching work for agencies, like making massive, huge printout boards for when the client comes in to wow them, all the way down to like making baskets and hampers with like personally designed booklets and things to give away to really win them over. Those RFPs just like absolutely destroying agencies. Yeah, I loved when I first read that book. I was just like, this makes so much sense. Why would you ever do free work in return for maybe getting a job? It doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah, Win Without Pitching Manifesto by Blair Enns. Definitely read that.
Read that. He's got a follow-up book, the Fourth Conversation, that actually just came out. I agree. It's a huge waste of money, a huge waste of time. RFPs, blind pitching, spec work, the whole lot of that unnecessary. Final question for me.
Sorry, it cut out there. Can you say that again?
Can you read your shirt for me?
Oh, of course. Designers. For those who haven't heard of me before, that is now like a sonic trigger for my videos. It's like a one-word way of telling whoever's watching who this content is for and what it's about to be, what I'm about to do. I don't know when I first said that, but now people get angry if I don't say it in my videos. I get comments like, you didn't say designers, say designers. And I went to Adobe Max last year. And people are just kind of brutal about it now. Like they come up and get videos with me, like, you didn't, please say designers, and they just get it. They get the video and laugh and walk off. It's kind of cruel.
Love it.
It's my fault.
Yep, that's your signature greeting on your video, and so I had to ask, can you say it? And I saw it on your shirt, so I knew that's the best way to say it. James, big fan. Love what you've built. Love watching it grow, and just the way you're helping the next generation and the current generation. And so I'm grateful for your time. Appreciate you being here with us. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Steve. And thank you for staying up late for me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's dinner time now.
Thanks again for tuning in to Agency Bytes. If you know someone with expert knowledge on a topic that agency owners would love to hear about, go to agencyoutsight.com/podcast-guest and nominate them.